Make sure to check us out on Letterboxd for written reviews.
for films that we've done not only on the podcast, but outside of the podcast too.
Links in the description below.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel,
And my name is Jaden.
and this is a podcast where we talk extensively about a certain film and then decide whether it deserves a rewatch from you. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other place you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, we appreciate a like on the YouTube video. So, Jaden, what film are we going to be talking about today?
Dear God, I hate when this time comes around. You know, it's every now and then we
Four times a
divulge-
year.
I shouldn't say every now and then. It's every
Every 3 months,
every
probably.
3 months
Yeah.
we divulge into the
The never-ending
Yeah.
saga of the MCU.
the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, as it should now probably be called. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which some also like to call Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Messiness, which is a 3.4. So it's going down. Yes, it's going down.
That's still, I mean, I don't know, for a Marvel movie, is a 3.4 on Letterboxd good or bad?
That's
It's-
less than Black Widow, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Marvel movies just like on Letterboxd, it's just so weird. Like,
I think this started off as a 3.5, and then I saw it go up to a 3.7, I want to say.
right.
And now it's gone back down to a 3.4.
Okay. So the plot synopsis for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange, with the help of mystical allies, both old and new, traverses the mind-bending and dangerous alternate realities of the multiverse to confront a mysterious new adversary. Wow.
That is a terrible synopsis.
So from that synopsis, you'd kind of gauge that the fact that this movie is in fact about Doctor Strange, and which it's not. It's not a Doctor Strange movie, is it?
No.
Alternate titles for this movie.
Let's go with diversity and wonder.
Yeah, we were talking about some alternate titles before the podcast. I was throwing a few out there, like, you know, Wanda and her broken family, also Doctor Strange.
While Doctor Strange sits on the sideline.
Yeah, and watches. But yeah, so essentially, from this stage, you could probably gauge the fact that this movie isn't really what it sells itself to be, and that plot synopsis is rather misleading because it does indicate that this is solely about Doctor Strange, which it's really not. There are, you know, at best, it's probably joint protagonists between Wanda and Strange. But I even don't think that it's joint protagonists. I think Wanda's the protagonist
Yeah.
of this movie.
Yeah. It's really... It's interesting what they did, because I like to think of protagonist as like the good guy, right? Obviously...
Not
this is-
necessarily, though.
That's essentially what I think of it as. So yeah, it's always been advertised as Wanda and Doctor Strange are sort of sharing screen time in this movie, which I'm fine with, but
But then just call the movie
something
Multiverse
else.
of Madness
Yeah,
and take out the Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
That's all they would have to do.
It's not a Doctor Strange movie in that regard, because it sort of feels like Doctor Strange and America Chavez and Wong are sort of cleaning up the mess of the real protagonist here, which is Wanda.
If you look at a film like Infinity War, I think it's largely regarded that Thanos is the protagonist
Yeah.
of that movie.
Yep. Yeah.
So you can do that. But then that movie is called Avengers Infinity War. It's not called, Captain America,
Yeah.
fighting bad guys.
Yep.
You know, it's
Captain America in the universe or something,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think just at the outset, I think it's important to note that, you know, this movie is not what it advertises itself as.
Benedict Cumberbatch got like screwed over, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he had one movie to start with, which is pretty bad. I don't know.
Can we address that? Because there are a lot of people that think
that
Doctor
really,
Strange.
really like Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange 2016, and they think it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And there are some people as well that say that the CGI is really, really good. But I can say I've used a Doctor Strange clip in one of our past videos. I believe it was when we were predicting that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire would show
Yeah.
up in the Spider-Man movies. And you brought up Doctor Strange. So I got a Doctor Strange clip and put it in there. And it is atrocious. Some of the CGI. They're running up buildings at one stage.
Yep.
And it's terrible. It's terrible.
I just look at it as like an Inception like knockoff.
Yes,
That's
but a
essentially
lot
what it
worse.
is. Yeah.
And without the thought and care, it's sort of just plastered in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that the first Doctor Strange movie is probably the most forgettable MCU movie. And I mean that...
Ant-Man and the Wasp is up there.
Oh, no, because people hate that movie.
True, actually.
Whereas, you know, and Captain Marvel, it gets like a lot of attention because people are like, this movie's garbage.
Yeah.
And there are some feminists that are like, this is great.
That's a good point. You forget that this one exists because
yeah.
no one talks about it, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, it's just like one of those Marvel movies that they just made and then they just moved on.
Yeah, it's like the Good Dinosaur in Pixar. Like,
Yes.
it's not Cars 2 because people know Cars 2 because it's bad.
Because it's terrible. Yeah.
And people know Incredibles because it's good. But people don't know The Good Dinosaur. People don't know Brave. People don't know
that's a
those
good point.
movies.
That's a good point.
It's like that with Doctor Strange.
It's just, I mean, I haven't watched the first one since cinemas, but I can just imagine that it's just fine. Like, it may not be horrendous. It may be better than this movie,
I would say it is better than this one.
but it's nothing special.
No.
Which a lot of the Marvel movies are just nothing special. But we're moving into a new phase now. This is phase 4. We've been in this phase for, 4 or 5 movies now. I think it started officially at... I think it did not start at Far From Home because some people like to say that was the end of phase 3. But I don't believe that. So from Far From Home onwards, we've had Far From Home... I want to say Black Widow.
Yep.
Was that the next one? And
I think
then
so.
Shang-Chi, and then Eternals, and then Spider-Man, right?
Have we forgotten anything?
Spider-Man, and then, well, we've had all
the series
all
as
the
well.
garbage Disney Plus shows.
Yeah. But I think that's all the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then now we have this. How is Phase 4 shaping up for you so far? Comparing it to the rest of the phases in the MCU.
I think Phase 3 is really where they sort of found their bread and butter, you know?
It's where the Russos came in.
It's where the Russos came in and they're like, okay, we're doing a restart where we're sort of giving the fans this 3-part sort of trilogy thing with Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. And that's what everyone cares about. Everyone knows Thanos is a villain.
Yeah.
He's Marvel's biggest villain. And they're like, okay, we're just going to do it outright. We're just going to do Infinity War. So I'd probably say Phase 3 is my favorite, but I'm also a big fan of Phase 1 just because of how simple it is.
Yes, and effective. And
effective.
A lot of the movies also have very distinct styles. Compare the first Iron Man to the first Thor.
Yep.
Very different films.
Very different. Kenneth Branagh directed Thor,
Yeah.
by the way.
I mean, I might want to, revisit that sometime because it may be a hidden gem.
I mean, you did like both of the murder films, so...
The other Kenneth Branagh
you might
directed
enjoy
movies.
it.
Yeah, I could.
But as for Phase 4, I'm not enjoying it. I've really only liked one of the movies, and it's because of certain reasons.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, and we know the reasons as to why it was good.
Yeah.
Um,
I've already spoken about the people in there, so don't feel afraid to spoil it.
Yeah, so it was only good because of obviously the other Spider-Men that were in it. But other than that, I haven't really liked anything. I think it's all just subpar and pretty average stuff. I've been severely let down by these movies. Black Widow was bad.
I know we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, yeah,
really bad.
we really gave that liberty on the podcast, but
Well, you wouldn't think so. We did trash it for a lot of the time, but I think you might have given it a pass.
I gave it a pass when it definitely isn't. But if we're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home in Phase 4 as well, that's a bad movie as well.
Yeah.
Black Widow is bad. What's the next one? I'll just cap it off. All the series are bad. Shang-Chi, bad.
Eternals.
Eternals was bad.
Have you seen Eternals?
I've seen Eternals.
Why did you watch Eternals?
I think it's because it's more of a... I feel obligated now to watch them. You know?
See, I felt that as well, but no, trust me. Once you miss one, you can miss all of them.
but it's because it's not because like I want to get the interconnectedness. It's because I want to see
how it compares,
and like I don't want to pass judgment before watching.
Sure.
Like I want to be able to watch it
and then make your own opinion.
Talk like absolute trash about it. Yeah. Like I don't want to be the guy when bad talking about it on Twitter. And then someone's like, okay, watch the movie first, and then you make your judgment. Yeah. This is me watching the movie,
and then
making my own judgment.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the weakest part, if we're comparing the phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, right? In phase 1, you sort of have the post-credit scenes that set up the Avengers, right? And then we get towards the end of phase 1, and we have the Avengers. From the first Avengers movie, we're teasing Thanos. We tease Thanos in, obviously, various movies because we have the Infinity Stones.
Yep.
And then every now and then, like in Age of Ultron, we'll have a big tease that Thanos, the big bad, is coming.
Yep.
And then that sort of gets greater and greater. And then we have the Russo brothers come in, who I think deserve the most credit for the MCU being good because they took a stumbling franchise. Age of Ultron was a terrible film. 100%. I tried to watch that a few months ago and I couldn't. It's so bad. And also visionless. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere.
Well, it does have vision in it. But...
Well, yes, but I mean in terms of a creative vision.
Yeah.
And then the Russo brothers came in and did Civil War. And then you think, oh, okay, this is interesting and new. It's got consequences. Where do we go from here? The answer to that was answered by the Russo brothers in the next film, Infinity War, which was fantastic. And then obviously led into Endgame, which seemed to be the big finale. After that, we get Spider-Man Far From Home, which was a terrible Spider-Man story. It wasn't even a Spider-Man story.
It's not a Spider-Man movie.
It's kind of just a lame film. And no sort of direction in terms of the post-credit scenes or anything like that. And then we move into, Black Widow, which is a prequel. We never should have had that movie. If we should have had that movie in phase 1, probably.
Yep.
Or phase 2. But, so disregard Black Widow. Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home was sort of its own thing. But... take the post credits of all of those films. They're not teasing anything in the future. No. The most they do is maybe tease aspects of the multiverse in their plot, but like very little stuff. And the multiverse isn't that exciting. It's just
what we're forgetting. Sorry, we're forgetting Morbius.
No, that's not MCU.
Let's count it.
Well, Vulture does come across, doesn't he?
And if we're talking about Venom as well. That was pretty bad.
Well, that was the post-credit in No Way Home, right?
Yeah. Actually, Venom was probably the funnest one. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, but there's no direction.
I know, but it was kind of fun.
We should be building up Galactus or Doctor Doom. We should be building up another
Secret
big bad.
Wars, something.
Yeah, we should be building to something here, and it feels like we're not. And Kevin Feige's the guy that's like, we plan the MCU 10 years in advance.
50 years
I'm sorry,
in advance.
but I call absolute garbage on that.
Yeah.
Absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Because...
mad BS going on there.
Yeah, because these movies don't have direction. If you put Shang-Chi and Eternals next to each other, what is the common thread? Absolutely nothing. They don't both lead into something. There's no connectivity.
It's clear that he wants to have a 10-year plan. We're talking about Feige here.
but he doesn't, because you end up with situations where you get switches on, you know, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. You think you could have anticipated that if you had a 10-year plan. Like, that just that
because
doesn't
of
happen.
delays and stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't happen
Yeah, and
last second.
you also have to take into account actor availability and, you know, just what consumers want. Maybe one movie's going to absolutely fail and you don't want to do a sequel to that movie. But, you know, I guess we're getting Captain Marvel too, aren't we? So
That's gonna be great.
maybe they don't really care. They just want to get some movies out. But anyway, let's transition to Multiverse of Madness then. I think it suffers from the previous movies as well because they're directionless and this doesn't really know what it wants to do, in my opinion. But let's start off with a broad, spoiler-free discussion. Would you recommend this film to someone? Let me say, would you recommend this film to an MCU fan who has not seen it?
It depends on. It really depends on where they go with characters' stories in this, because I could definitely see this being connected to stuff in the future, and if you're an MCU fan, then obviously that's pretty important, you know.
Just to keep up with the continuity.
Connectedness is what this has all been about, essentially. But if they decide to finish certain storylines on this movie, like if they wrap up Doctor Strange's arcs, if they wrap up Wanda's arcs in this movie, and they don't deal with any of that anymore, then this is a total skip. You could skip this as well.
I guess it's only time will tell as to whether this actually means anything or not.
Yeah, essentially is what I'm saying. But if you're an MCU fan, you're probably going to watch it anyway. But I'll throw it back to you. Let's say the general audience.
No.
Didn't even let me finish.
General audience. I mean, if you haven't seen, if you've maybe seen a few MCU movies, then people are going to bring you to Endgame.
Yep.
People are going to bring you to Infinity War.
Yep.
And they're going to bring you to Spider-Man No Way Home. But then they're not going to bring you to Doctor Strange.
No.
He just doesn't have that draw. The character just doesn't have the draw. And then this movie itself is not good enough to have that draw. And I'm not saying it doesn't have the potential to be. A Sam Raimi Marvel movie sounds very good on paper. Very, very good. I mean, we've had the Marvel Spider-Man movies from 2002.
And it's upsetting because you get Doctor Strange mentions in those movies.
Yeah. He's a very big fan of Doctor Strange as a character, which is one of the reasons why he came on.
Yeah.
So, are we going to be rewatching this film anytime soon?
No.
Why is that?
I don't ever plan to rewatch this.
Why is that?
For one, I'm starting to dislike the MCU more and more. And that's not because of, you know, things that we like to joke about a lot, like their inclusions of diversity. It's because they have this. It's Kevin Feige, is essentially what it is. It's his huge, overinflated ego. It's what they keep doing to the fans in terms of just blatant disregard for what the fans want. They give it to them and then they just throw it in the trash.
Ralph Boner.
Ralph Boner is essentially what I was going for there. It's just continual stuff that keeps on happening that just disappoints. And then the only property that's really done it right is Sony with No Way Home. Marvel can call that their movie as much as they want, but we all know that's Sony's movie. They pretty much had all of the creative vision in that. They didn't let Marvel do anything in that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been working together. We had that whole Spider-Man breakup back in 2019 or whatever.
Yeah. Imagine Tom Holland getting stuck with Far From Home as his last movie. No
could
wonder
you
why he was
imagine?
crying in front of Bob Iger.
He wouldn't have gotten all his money, bro.
Yeah.
But essentially what I'm saying is if you take No Way Home out of the equation, which is pretty much 90% Sony, what is the MCU now, man? Like,
It's just spinning its wheels.
it's driving without any traction. It's got nothing under its belt to like give it any sort of flair. It's just not interesting anymore. They can be as they could have so much potential, man, with the characters. Superheroes are it's such an interesting genre because it's pretty much limitless.
and they've got all of these characters at their disposal, but they take their time with it and they still mess it up. Yeah, it hasn't been good since Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hate to say that.
Yeah, I mean, we're Marvel fans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we may not be avid comic readers, but we are, you know, cinematic superhero fans. Like, if there's a new superhero movie coming out, we'll probably 95% of the time go to see it, unless we are just not interested by the character at all.
Yeah.
Or we've just heard that the movie's really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we may just go see the movie anyway, like with Morbius.
Yep.
You know,
We were there day one.
Was it actually?
It was day one.
That's embarrassing.
Day one in VMAX.
That's embarrassing. That was a low point for us. But
Was it?
it's Morbin time, guys. But the problem is that, you know, we are fans that should be very excited about these movies. We're almost like the target demographic. It's not. I don't think it's misogynistic or sexist to say that the superhero genre target demographic is male.
Yeah.
And within, I'd say, probably the ages of 15 to 25. I think that's the core market there. That's not to say that a lot of females, you know, don't like the MCU. Obviously, a lot of them do.
Well, I think that's because what it started off as is comics, and comics were given to
And
soldiers.
it was
to
nerd culture, and you know, predominant. Like, if we think 20 years ago, who was reading comics? Not cool kids.
No.
You know, it's the nerds, and it's usually the male nerds with the glasses that sit in the back of the class and they read their stupid comics. You know, and they're never going to amount to anything because they're just doing this. You know, reading comics.
Yep.
Whereas now it's almost not cool to not see the Marvel movies. You know, it's a cool thing to do. You take your friends. There's no shame in going to see the new Avengers movie or going to see the new Batman movie. That's a big change. But my point is, we are the target demographic. We should be very excited for these movies, and they're losing us.
Yep.
So it's important to discuss why this one is adding to that effect. Because, we watched it a few weeks after it came out, and that in itself says a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Because we usually, I mean, for God's sakes, we saw Morbius day one. You know,
Why did we do that?
it's beyond me. It's beyond me. But
Morbius sweep.
okay, let's get into the specifics of this movie. We'll try and stay spoiler free for now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the acting and some of the characters that we liked. One of the positives that I took from this movie is that Sam Raimi does a lot of close-ups on people's faces, and you don't get that a lot in MCU because the MCU doesn't often focus on the acting performances. They're usually just focused on the big action scenes and you know the wider scale of stuff.
Yep.
But I really appreciated in this movie some nice close-up shots of Doctor Strange and some of Wanda, where you can really show Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen really acting, because they're great actors.
Yep.
And often enough, they're not given the chance to really show that.
Yeah.
But then the downside to that is when you've got a terrible actor and you zoom in on their face and you show us nothing but their face and they're terrible, we're going to see that they're terrible.
Yeah.
But
It's like really enhanced like badness.
yeah, even if it's a good performance, it's going to make it a great, you know, frame. If it's a bad performance, it's going to make it a terrible frame.
Yeah.
But who did you like in this movie? Come on, Wong. Your favorite MCU character. He's been in like 10 movies.
I mean, it has to be Wong, man. Nah.
He must be getting up there for the total MCU appearances.
I mean, why is he in like every movie now?
He's in like Spider-Man and Shang-Chi, and he's tallying them up. He must be earning bank. Good on the guy.
It's very weird how he's like appearing in every movie. Honestly,
He's
though,
the connective tissue of the MCU.
yeah, it's probably Christine Palmer or whoever that actress is.
Rachel McAdams, I think, is her name.
Why does that sound like really familiar? I think she was the best part of it, honestly.
So Doctor Strange's love interest.
Doctor Strange's love interest. I think she's probably the best part of it.
Rachel McAdams.
I didn't really enjoy anyone else. I'm just kind of peeking at her filmography.
She's in a lot of like rom-coms.
Yeah.
About Time, I've seen that. That was quite good.
Mm.
Obviously in the first Doctor Strange, but I don't really remember her from that. But I
Neither
do
do I.
agree, she was quite good.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Benedict Cumberbatch. No, I don't know. It might have just been the first one that I recognised her from. I wasn't the biggest fan of Benedict Cumberbatch in this. I wasn't the biggest fan of Wanda in this. I think Wanda was better in WandaVision in terms of acting. I think she had more emotion in that series, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't like that series either. I'm just saying that she's a better actress in that. Rachel McAdams is probably my favourite part of it.
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot because she is like a side character in this.
Yeah, I'd almost have to agree, to be honest. Because I did think that her connection with Doctor Strange was quite a good thing, you know? But I would have tweaked some things that we can get to in spoiler territory.
Or add some things, rather.
Yeah. But overall, I would have to agree. She was probably the standout in terms of the acting performances.
It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a second.
It's not often, though, that the love interest is the standout in an MCU film. Usually it's the thing that's pushed to the side and, you know, the other things are better. But I did like the Christine, you know.
I like talking about this, like, pretty much live after we've watched the movie because you get stuff like that that's interesting. Like, it's a live discussion and you're hearing our thoughts, like, for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we're hearing our thoughts for the first time. Like, I was genuinely surprised that this side love interest was the best part or best actor in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd.
Because it's not a rom-com.
It's not a rom-com. And, I mean, Doctor Strange should be the best part of this movie. Or Wanda, which isn't either.
And that's not to say that Benedict Cumberbatch was bad. I don't think he's ever been bad.
No.
I think the
It's
character
just
just lacks a bit of purpose and direction. And that's not to say that we can't possibly get that in the future, but we didn't get it here. And a lot of, you know, my main problem with the MCU fans is that, you know, I'm an MCU fan myself, but maybe I should call them MCU stans because they're not fans. They're you know, they're like advocates, MCU advocates. The main problem I have with them is that they're always looking to the future. You know, they're always excited for the next product, next film, next series, without actually rewatching and assessing what they've just seen.
Yep.
And analyzing that to see whether that was actually a good movie, whether that was actually worth it. You know, it's always just, oh, I'm excited for the next one, excited for Doctor Strange to come back. And yeah, assessing this movie in terms of Doctor Strange's character, I think they could have done so much better.
Yep.
And I critique this film for that. I don't say, oh, they could take it in an interesting direction in the future. I just say, no.
Should have been done.
They just did a Doctor Strange movie. I just watched it.
How many films are we going to have to make before we get it right?
Well, Spider-Man was in like 5 films before he became Spider-Man, wasn't he?
Yeah. And it's funny because MCU fans, MCU stans, keep giving Marvel time to get it right when they shouldn't. They should be... We've said this before. I think we said this in Spider-Man No Way Home podcast. MCU fans should be demanding more. And that's not demanding more content. That's not demanding, you know, more cameos. That's demanding better content.
Better quality. Yeah.
And better quality. Because we get garbage like this that should have a great arc for Doctor Strange, a great finishing arc for Wanda. And the love interest is the best part.
Yeah.
Like,
who we completely forgot was in the first movie.
It's just... It's laughable.
I mean, I'm not even sure if she actually is a love interest in the first movie.
I think she is.
Maybe just at the start, but then she gets shoved to the side, right? She doesn't become a main sort of driving force of the plot. I believe it's just Doctor Strange embracing his magic powers and learning to, you know, I don't know, not text while he drives or something.
But I think there's the whole thing at the end with, like, he's doing some sort of surgery and it's connected to the plot and she's, like, in his dreams... Something like that. I think she's got that sort of, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope sort of thing going on.
Right.
It's like
That's an odd comparison.
Well, it's kind of accurate, though.
Does she die or? No, she doesn't because she's in this movie at the start with the wedding scene.
Oh, that is true.
But I think what you're trying to say is maybe she's just like an overarching sort of like she's just always.
She disappears and then she comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But like I don't think. But the first movie's not that concerned with her, so it's odd how she's suddenly become.
Maybe we need to rewatch it before.
But then again, we've seen Doctor Strange in like 5 movies, and he's just been dealing with like multiverse and existential threats.
It's
and
because
stuff.
he's a Sigma that realizes what's going on.
Yeah,
like,
he does the job.
He does the job.
Yeah, and now suddenly he's a bit mopey that he hasn't got his woman, and fair enough. She's quite an attractive woman.
I think he deserves something. He saved the universe a few times.
Exactly, and I don't think this movie actually gives anything to say good job for that, which is quite sad. I mean, we'll talk about the moral of this story, but yeah, I was kind of depressed with the ending of this movie in terms of Doctor Strange. I feel like he's quite a sad character. Yeah, and I never thought of him as a sad character. He seemed like a bit of an asshole,
like an arrogant sort of.
Yeah. But like he's still, he's okay. Mentally, he's not like depressed. Yeah.
But you always just sort of brush him off as the guy that realizes like, okay, the fate of the universe.
Yeah, let's do something to.
That's more important.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the problem that we think of him as this guy who's constantly going to save the world, and we depend on him. But then nobody ever asks how is Doctor Strange. They just ask, where is Doctor Strange?
Yeah. Where is Doctor Strange?
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the visuals of this movie. Goodness me. So let's talk about the visuals. I actually was quite surprised that the color grading was good.
Okay.
Because usually it's a bit grey when we get to these MCU movies. But even when we watched the trailer, which was the stupid post-credit scene of No Way Home.
Oh, did you say something?
Yeah, I said, wow, there's actually colour on the screen.
Oh, yeah, I think I do remember you saying that.
Look at the colour grading. It actually looks like you can actually see the reds and, it's popping.
Yeah.
Whereas we just watched a movie that was quite, like, subdued in terms of colour. And so I appreciate that. I like seeing colours, the vibrant colours. But what's wrong with the CGI?
Oh, everything. I mean, where do we start with this? Okay, so we've expressed our thoughts about CGI in the MCU multiple times. Where's it probably the worst? Doctor Strange standing on a train in No Way Home is the last one I remember. Think that.
Don't forget the infamous and Rewatch award-winning scene from Black Widow, where I think we called it the Yelena explosion.
Yeah.
Which actually won a Rewatch award. So let's not forget about that.
Yeah, true. That was
it's award-worthy CGI.
Or just like the whole the whole Eternals. Let's just say Eternals. Yeah. Look, MCU CGI. It's always been bad. Like, it's been bad since like.
I mean, Iron Man was good.
But that's because it was practical.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much, like, they did... And that's how it should be with CGI. You should use it when you need to, not use it because it's easier.
Yeah. Which they certainly do now.
Which they do now. And you end up with a film like this that just... I mean, from the start, it was just bad. Like, there was just some running sequences in this sort of otherworldly dimension. And then it has these close-up shots. Well, not close-up, but character framing shots. And you
where
just
it's a character, and then you can... So there's a character you can maybe see, from the waist upwards in the frame. And then there's nothing else, like...
And blurry
there's nothing else in the foreground.
Yep.
It's just the character. And then behind the character is presumably the green screen. And so that's where they put the CGI background.
Yep. And it just looks horrendous. Like, there was a sequence at the start, which it isn't spoiler territory because it's been shown in trailers. And we see this, they call it a squid, but it's not a squid. I think they call it an octopus.
whatever it is, some otherworldly tentacled creature.
Yeah.
And we see America Chavez running away from it, and I think that's the worst shot in the movie. It looks so bad. Like, it looks like it's just been comped on there, and then she's just like sort of moving forward and running. Oh, it looks horrendous, man. I don't know if you caught that, but
No, I remember a lot of those.
Yeah,
shots.
there was a lot of, and oh my god, in the movie going on.
There was a lot of like palm to head action.
Yeah,
there was a lot of
swivel and chair to
there's
each
just
other.
a lot of like heads in your hands, sort of like, what are we watching here? And every time I think we caveat this by saying this is not the VFX artist's fault. This is the Marvel management fault.
Yeah,
it's Kevin Feige's fault. Because he pushes
for these mandates.
Yeah,
Man.
he's not giving the VFX artists enough time to really perfect their work, because I think they've probably got some of the most talented people in the industry.
Yeah.
But because they're so like they're so rushed with their work, they're not really able to impress.
Yeah. Well, let me put this in perspective. One of the digital effects studios that worked on this, Weta Studios, which we've talked about a bit on the podcast, it made Avatar in 2009. 13 or so years before this.
Yeah.
And they worked on this today. What is that saying, man?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just goes to show that they're not. They have the resources. They could make it look better, but they're just choosing not to.
They choose money over quality.
And
essentially what
and
it is.
that's the saddest thing, because this movie could look absolutely spectacular. And I think some of the reasons why those VFX shots where it's just a character on a green screen, why it looks so bad is not just because of the VFX. It's also because of the lack of production design.
Yep.
So, for instance, maybe we have a set, right? And this set is a green box, right? That's where we film Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, right? So you get Doctor Strange, you put him on there, and you say, okay, Benedict, just, there's a monster coming at you, so give us a concerned look or something like that, and wiggle your hands around so we can do a Doctor Strange power move, and
portal moving stuff.
But then let's contrast that with maybe a set that maybe has, some cars, some buildings, some things in the foreground, and then you put the green screen behind that.
Yep.
It just adds a bit more dimension.
Yep.
But there are times where they should have easily and could have easily done that, but they just didn't, because you can see how flat it is.
Yep.
There's no actual depth to it.
Dimension going on.
Yeah.
It's essentially taking the acting out of acting. Like, you can't act. Well, not that I know anything about acting, but I imagine you couldn't act when there's nothing to act in front of. There's nothing to act towards.
Well, it has some performances, but a lot of talented people could do it. I mean, obviously Benedict's had to do it a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
And, think of Ewan McGregor in the prequels and such.
Yeah.
But, like, it does add so much, I imagine, to their performance when they can actually, see cars and see people running around. There are so many times in this movie where there are people in the city running, but they're not actually there. They've been filmed separately and put in the background.
Yep. There's a shot, and I don't know if you've seen this before, but there's a shot where there's this one guy, and he's like
The running man.
And he's in like 5 different shots.
That's an editing mistake.
But it plays continuously.
Yeah.
So it's chronologically correct. And then you see him just continually running through the shot.
Yeah.
Which is just...
Yeah, that's an editing mistake. There are a few editing mistakes in this. For instance, when we get to a scene later on, there is somebody who is standing maybe 2 meters from the character next to them, and then in the next shot they're suddenly standing a lot closer, and they didn't move. That's just an editing mistake. And they're also, the stance changes. And then also there's another one where a character has got their head in someone's hand, and then the next shot they are suddenly a lot closer. So there's a lot of editing mistakes, which just goes to show that this movie was reshot to hell and back.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the direction of the movie. You can see that in the editing mistakes, the CGI, because the CGI drops off dramatically in some areas, and you can just be like, oh, okay, this is a reshoot.
Yeah, it's shameful what it is, because it would have been interesting to see, Scott Derrickson's original script and what he wanted to do with the movie. I'm sure he would have wanted to do like a great arc with Doctor Strange. None of this, just full of cameos, which isn't a spoiler because some do appear in the trailer sequences. Just chock full of cameos, just chock full of just utter rubbish that shouldn't be in here. And you just lose the Doctor Strange in a Doctor Strange titled movie.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the great thing about Spider-Man No Way Home. It didn't lose the Spider-Man aspect. In fact, the cameos actually reinforced the main character's journey.
Yep.
And that was what was surprising the most about that film. That it actually used the cameos to enhance the film,
what's going on,
enhance the story and the character's journey. Whereas in this, you can't say the same.
Yeah, I'm fairly excited for the future of MCU's Spider-Man. I think they left off in a really good place. But I can't say the same for anything in this movie.
Okay, let's talk about the sound. Let's just get this out the way because Danny Elfman did the score.
Oh,
look.
God,
so Danny Elfman, his Raimi Spider-Man scores back in the day, actually I enjoy them. I enjoy them. I don't think they're the best Spider-Man scores, but I do enjoy them. I do think they're quite good. Very operatic and lots of choir singing, and I enjoy that sort of music. However, in 2017, he did the score for the infamous movie that must not be named. Let's just call it Justice League, spelled Joss. And
to clarify, yes.
And that, of course, is a movie that no longer exists. But when it did exist, Danny Elfman did the score for that movie, and he did not use the incredible, beautiful Hans Zimmer score for Superman. He made up his own, and he made a terrible one. And he did a Justice League theme that was terrible. But not only did he just make a terrible Justice League score, what did he do with this movie?
He just fully resampled it. Like, he just made it a Doctor Strange theme. He's like, okay, people don't know about this. People have forgotten about this, right? No, we remember it, and we know what you did, Daniel. You reused the theme and just pitched it up a bit. It's like, how lazy can you be? This is your job. This is probably like one of the biggest movies in terms of anticipation that's been, MCU in general is pretty big for anticipation, but there was rumors floating around that made this a pretty anticipated movie. And you just go ahead and just resample arguably like the worst superhero movie in the past
that you've
decade
ever done. Yeah.
That you did. And you just it's just
not acceptable, is it? It's I'm not a huge fan of Danny Elfman to start with, but that's just not.
That's not okay.
It's not.
It's like turning in your brother's homework or something like that.
Yeah. It's just plagiarism.
It's straight up plagiarism.
Because you can plagiarize yourself. We all learn that when we do school and university, that just because it's your own work, it doesn't mean you can't plagiarize it.
Yeah.
And he's plagiarized himself here, and that's a shame because he is a well-known composer, and it's a shame for him to do something like this at such a late stage in his career.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But
it's shameful.
He has just reused his music. So look, we usually at the end of the podcast put a song into the Rewatch playlist, but we're not going to do it for this film because he's just reused his score, and that's not acceptable.
We may as well just put the 2017 Justice League one.
Well, yeah,
but we're not going to do that.
Yeah, because that's a terrible film, and we that film no longer exists, obviously. So
it's just gone out of memory.
Yeah, I mean, why would we remember that when a superior version exists? So yeah, we'll not talk about the score from here onwards. I don't think it was that. It was probably better than the average MCU score because you could probably hear it at times.
Yeah.
And it was kind of used for some action scenes occasionally, which is interesting. But apart from that, I didn't think any of the music was particularly good.
We'll touch on. I'll touch on sound design here while we're talking about it. There was this weird thing they kept doing with like piano notes.
Yeah. That's very Raimi.
It's very Raimi and it's very like Halloweeny in a way. It was just like
very
random
cheesy horror.
Yeah, it was very like throughout the movie. It was just bam, like piano, bam, like scary
like
moment.
Wanda opens her eyes, bang.
Yeah, it's like why? Just it was continual like 2 piano notes, just bam, bam, bam. Yeah. It was just when there's a scary moment, okay, we'll do that. Yeah, and it's
just like because that jump scares you. It's not the image; it's the
loud music. Yeah. And it's just why then?
All right, so at this stage, we will move into spoiler territory. Let's talk about Doctor Strange's involvement in this film. Mm-hmm. It's not his film. We've touched on that because the plot of this movie is that Wanda has, in WandaVision, which Sam Raimi didn't watch, by the way, which just goes to show how much the MCU directors care about continuity. Mm-hmm. But in WandaVision, Wanda creates a version of her children. So she has children. And obviously, we learn to realize that those children are not real. Mm-hmm. And so we leave WandaVision with Wanda having tortured many innocent civilians over a number of weeks at least, maybe even months. And then we go into this film, and Wanda's trying to find her children in multiverses or whatever, in different universes. And suddenly she's just prepared to, she's gone from torturing people to just out and out just murdering hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. And this is somebody who was an Avenger in Endgame, like a good person in Endgame, a troubled person, but a good person nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And she decides to do the plot of this movie. She moves the plot forward in her actions. The plot of the film does not work without her. The plot runs through Wanda's character. Mm-hmm. If you take Wanda out of the film, you don't have a film here. No. Whereas if you take Doctor Strange out of the film and replace him with Vision, you could probably have a similar story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I hate that it always comes back to this, and I hate that, people brand people like us when we say stuff like this, but it always comes back to the general audience not wanting misogynistic men to be the heroes of their own stories. Doctor Strange should have been the hero in this movie.
Well, because it's just named
no
after
question
him. It's
about
just
it.
Named after him, right?
Yeah.
The movie's named after him. It should be his movie. If this movie was called Wanda, I would have absolutely no problem. We would then go from the perspective of how is this as a Wanda film, and it probably have potential to be a decent Wanda film if they tweaked some things.
Yeah.
But you've got to find obviously somebody else to join in. So if you wanted to just change the title of the film and call it Wanda in the Multiverse of Madness, we come at it from that perspective. But it's the main character in this film, I think, is Wanda. So
it's how do I word
it's
this?
Got nothing to do with the fact that she is a person of the female gender or anything else.
No, it's just the fact that they've labeled this movie a Doctor Strange movie when it isn't. It's like calling Spider-Man No Way Home Doctor Strange No Way Home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like doing that when obviously the main protagonist in it is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it's just frustrating that they keep having these moments where they just misunderstand what the fans want and what they've created. You've named this a Doctor Strange movie. Make it about Doctor Strange, or at least try your hardest to, or at least balance some characters better. It's like 90% Wanda.
That is
10% Doctor Strange.
This is a wider problem with the MCU as well because, I think WandaVision was also like maybe 80% Wanda, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier was I think 80% Falcon.
Yeah.
And then what was the next one?
Loki
was maybe 50%. The female Loki, which I thought was fine.
Yeah.
Loki was okay. Hawkeye was like maybe 80% Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
So probably
I gave up on that one.
probably should have been called Kate Bishop, the show. But I still enjoyed it. But it was odd how little Hawkeye was involved in the main plot.
I mean, just think of the title. It's not more obvious than that. It's called Hawkeye.
Yeah, it should be about Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Moon Knight is interesting because the main hero at the end of the story is actually Moon Knight's girlfriend. So there's a common theme here of just a bit of a subversion of what the title says and what we actually get.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely an issue that the MCU has going forward. But let's actually examine Wanda's character. What did you think about her motivations in this movie? And did you feel in any way that what she was doing was justified for her cause? Do you see like her perspective and why she believes that killing these people is the right thing to do because she wants to get back to her kids, which don't exist?
I mean, obviously, it's not morally correct. I do think she's a bit of a more fragile character in that regard, so she's more prone to doing this stuff. But it's in no way like
it's a bit of a leap.
Yeah, it's a very big leap, and they could do it. They just haven't done it correctly.
Yeah, I do agree. I think there's a much more talented writer that could take this character from WandaVision, and
from Age of Ultron, really.
Yeah, and sort of justify. She's had a tough life, Wanda, but others have had tougher lives in the MCU.
100%,
and they're still going strong. So, but
Thor in particular, and he's a happy man. I mean, the next one's called Thor Love.
Yeah, and it's got like happy music in the trailer.
I mean, he's smiling in the trailer.
Yeah.
And you don't see him tearing off people's heads and
where's Wanda's resilience? That's what you say. Well, come on, Wanda. Like we sympathize with you that you've lost people. That automatically sympathizes. We automatically sympathize with you. But that there's too much of a leap between she's a Avenger in Endgame and suddenly she's a terrible villain.
Yep.
In 2 movies after that, 2 MCU appearances after that.
Yeah.
It's just too much of a leap for me. But I do think there was potential to maybe go down a depression route, a grief route. But they did that in WandaVision. I don't think it was particularly good.
I think the peak of it was probably Infinity War, where we see her grieving over Vision. And then in Endgame, she's sort of
angry.
Yeah, you get that period where like she's really frustrated with Thanos.
Yeah.
And she's targeting her anger like to the right.
Yeah.
Sort of people.
Yes. Whereas in this, it sort of goes.
Vision doesn't exist anymore, man. Like, well, he does. Sorry, he does exist, but to Wanda, he doesn't exist. And that was her life, man. Like she was obsessed with Vision in these movies, Civil War and Infinity War.
Yeah.
There's not even a mention of Vision in this movie.
There's one name drop at the start.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, well, but it's only about the multiverse. She says, "Oh, Viz had a theory about the multiverse."
It's
That's
just a throwaway. It's a throwaway
It's
line.
an integral part of her character.
Yeah, and we don't get anything about it. It's just now all focused on these kids. Paul Bettany's been screwed over big time.
Probably
in terms of that, and I think that might have part to do with the Johnny Depp trial. Unfortunately, some stuff's come up about him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if Marvel's choosing to go down that route, then I will be frustrated.
Paul Bettany was in the very first MCU movie.
Yeah,
as
he's
Jarvis.
been there since the start.
Yeah.
So if you decide to throw away Paul Bettany, then you've lost all my respect, Marvel. I have completely renounced Fantastic Beasts for what they did to my boy Johnny Depp. And maybe eventually I'll do that if you end up going in a certain direction with Paul Bettany. There's this interesting line in the movie where we see Reed Richards. We're spoiled, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. We see Reed Richards say something about, I've got children too.
Yeah.
And then Wanda's like, do they have a mother?
Bro, there are so many bad one-liners in this movie.
Yeah.
But please go on.
And then Wanda's like, do they have a mother?
And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, okay, well, they'll be all right then. And it's like, okay, well, no, first of all.
Yeah,
That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and it's such a shame because this is a character that we liked in previous. I really like Wanda in Civil War. I think that's the peak of her character. I think that's when she was the most likable. I think the Russos got her right in that film. And yeah, just to see her go from that, I'm not even like, it's not even tragic to me. Like, I don't look at the character and feel the tragedy there. I just think it's stupid writing. I just think it's weak writing.
Yeah.
It's weak character development because, you know, it's just such a leap to go from, you know, she's lost Vision. And
no mention of her brother either.
Yeah, she lost her brother, which is a big thing in WandaVision. But she's not trying to search for her brother. She's not trying to search for Vision, who should be alive in those universes where she has children.
Yep.
So otherwise, who else does she have the children with?
Yep.
So it's just about the children. It feels like the MCU just sort of like picks and chooses plot threads in terms of their continuity. You know, they'll leave out certain things, but they'll take other things. And it's like, well, hang on. If you're going to advertise this as a continuing universe, then you have to take all of the elements through and address them.
Yep.
Where was Vision? Because he's alive in this in her main universe.
I still see Vision as the integral part of Wanda's character. You know, she can have kids all she wants and love them, but she's always been about Vision, man. Like, she's just absolutely crazy about Vision, and we don't even get a mention of him. It's mind blowing how it just makes no sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about. There's a new character introduced to this movie. Whether she's a character or not is one thing. You could almost call her a plot device. Her name is America Chavez. She's a MacGuffin. She's a plot device. She's not an actual character. She comes in to solve plot holes and to drive the story forward with her powers in terms of the multiverse jumping. She's not actually a character. Like, she doesn't have a personality. She doesn't have endearing qualities or qualities that we learn about. She doesn't actually have an arc. She just goes from not being able to use her powers to Doctor Strange giving her a bit of an inspirational speech.
Yep.
And then suddenly she can use her powers.
Yeah.
There's no lesson being learnt there. She just got a speech and she just did it.
And there's parts where she just uses her powers when she's just got like these handcuffs on, and it just completely like she can't do that.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange can't use his powers because he's got handcuffs on, but she can. Like,
yeah. And then
what's the logic?
Her parents get killed or teleported somewhere else because a bee landed on her hand. Like, that's just so lame, man. That's such a lame backstory. And don't even get me started on those exposition machines. Step on this thing and we'll give you a memory. It's like, that's just so blatant. That's so blatant. Exposition dump. It's an exposition machine.
Yeah.
It was so cringe. Both sequences were very cringe. I mean, you can tell which one they would cut out for the Saudi Arabia audience. Obviously, the second one, because you could just remove that and it doesn't add much to the film.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. So America Chavez, she's played by a 16-year-old.
Xochitl Gomez.
I don't want to go too harsh on her, but she's not very good in this film. Yeah. It doesn't mean she can't get better in the future, but it wasn't it for me. I don't like that character particularly. It's not that I dislike that character or I hate that character. It just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
She was a plot device. There was nothing really interesting about her.
I mean, you can't be too harsh on them because of their age, unfortunately.
Exactly.
For one, the material isn't there to start with. It's just weak.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, I think she doesn't exactly have, and it's harsh, but to me, she just didn't work in this. Maybe we'll see her grow into a fine actress. It just didn't really work for me.
Yeah, fair
I'll
enough.
probably leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, let's see where they take that character. But yeah,
I can't see them taking it anywhere. I think she's just going to turn into one of those, Wasp, where it's always just there. But it's
Well, America Chavez is not a particularly successful character in comics. She's a very new character.
Yeah.
She was created maybe a few years ago and has not been successful. So this is the decision that the MCU is making. They're bringing in characters that are unsuccessful in comic books
Yep.
and very recent. Instead of going for, those diehard favorites, we still haven't gotten, the likes of Nova and other, well, I guess we can't have Spider-Man stuff because that's Sony, but like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men.
Were you going to go into Miles Morales there, or?
No, I was going to just go into like, just like other Spider-Man, related things like Spider-Man, noir and
because you know what's crazy about Miles Morales is he is like a household name now.
Yes.
And that's largely due to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, and the recent video game.
Yeah. And he's 2014, I'm pretty sure, is when they created him, which is insane, man. Like, that's 8 years ago.
Also a popular character. Well, actually, I don't think he's that popular in the comics, but definitely nowadays in the other materials, very popular.
Other media, he is huge.
Yeah, very popular. So I could see why they would want to bring that character in. But a character like America Chavez, like there's no fans there for America Chavez. Or Miss
Marvel.
Yeah, that's that, and She-Hulk and all. These are all, so characters like She-Hulk, Kate Bishop. They're derivative characters.
Yeah.
And even, the likes of Captain Carter in this movie and
sounds so bad.
What's the other one? The Captain Marvel. So they're derivative characters, which means so take this for instance, right? Let me because you think I'm being misogynistic, but let me relate it.
It just sounds.
Let me relate it to a male character, okay? So listen to this theory, right? He's laughing his head off, guys. No. So listen to this theory, okay? So Batman is a character, correct? Robin is a mini Batman.
Yep.
Therefore, Robin is a derivative character of Batman.
Yeah.
Right? Because Robin's just a younger version of Batman.
Yeah.
Right? Take Superman. Superman is a character. Supergirl is a derivative character.
Yeah.
Now, there's a common theme with these derivative characters, okay? They're all unpopular. But it doesn't just apply to the likes of Supergirl.
Yeah.
Characters like, Barry Allen, the Flash, is a character.
Kid Flash.
Yeah, Kid Flash is a derivative character.
Yep.
Who's more popular? Obviously Flash.
The Flash, yeah.
Right? So it just goes on, right? And the MCU is at the stage where instead of branching out interesting new main characters, they're going to these derivative characters who are seen as like replacements.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a mistake that we might see the DCEU do with introducing the likes of Supergirl, Batgirl as replacements for Batman and Superman, because those characters are just, they can be interesting characters, but they're just not a bigger draw as the main guys that they're based off. And, Miles Morales, people get very angry when you say this, but Miles Morales is a derivative character of Spider-Man because somebody's going, well, how about we take Spider-Man and we give a different context to it?
Yeah.
And the truth is, when you say Spider-Man, people think of Peter Parker. But that doesn't mean that Miles Morales, cannot be a popular Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's just a dumb business decision to bring in derivative characters instead of just bringing in new main characters like the Fantastic Four, like the X-Men.
And the thing is like, essentially what Marvel wants is diversity at the end of the day, and I'm all for diversity. I think it's great. I think we need more of it. I don't want to watch a world where there's completely 500 white superheroes. Like, no one wants that. And you can get diversity. Yeah, 100% can. And you just have to select your heroes more carefully. Go with the diversity characters who are household names.
Like Miles Morales.
Yeah, or go with Storm, who's like huge in
Yeah.
X-Men, man. And she's been played by it might be Halle Berry, but
Yeah, I
could
think
be
so.
wrong.
Yeah. That's
So
correct.
a black woman.
Yeah.
Like come on.
So
like
if you
can
want
do
to,
it.
if you want to tick those diversity quotas, which Marvel certainly does,
Mm.
you can do that while also like giving us interesting characters.
Yeah,
right?
don't choose these side characters.
So let's move then to the Illuminati. So that's obviously was the main tease in the trailers, which got people to see this movie in the first place.
Yep.
Everyone was looking forward to maybe seeing Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski. We got that. We also got what's the dude's name that plays Charles Xavier?
Oh my god. Wow. Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart as that guy, and and then we also get Hayley Atwell, who is like the most beautiful woman I think
Oh yeah.
to be in any Marvel movie, MCU movie.
Yeah.
And she plays the Captain America variant that we
Captain
see
Carter.
in What If.
Mhm.
And then we also see a Captain Marvel variant, and we also see Black Bolt, who is a character.
In Inhumans, I think, yeah.
Right. And what did you think about the Illuminati in this film?
It's just a weird selection, you know?
Yeah, it's an odd group.
Like, people were...
It doesn't seem like an actual group, like a cohesive group.
Yeah, you're definitely right with that.
Like, they don't actually seem like they're friends.
Yeah.
Like, they're...
No.
Like, they don't actually... Forgive me, but I don't think they actually talk to each other. They just address...
No, it's because they're not in
Doctor
the same
Strange.
room. We've talked about this. They're not in the same room. They've shot on different screens. So, it's just a weird selection to start with. And there were people, you know, sort of guessing as to who's going to be in the Illuminati. Tom Cruise is Iron Man. Reed Richards. Obviously some form of, you know, Captain Marvel. You've got, obviously, Professor X was shown. And Hayley Atwell as Captain Carter. Black Bolt, like, who knows?
I'm sorry, but I don't know that character.
Like, it's just such a weird pick. And then like...
And the power is so lame.
I know. Yeah. He talks and he, like, kills people.
Yeah, he, like, shoots waves. Like, isn't that, like, Black Canary?
Essentially, yeah. So is this Marvel just trying to, like, say, hey, we've got this other sort of Netflix content out there.
Yeah, but...
You should watch that now. And it's
But,
like...
yeah, I'm sorry, but everyone's performance in the Illuminati, including John Krasinski, who I think's a good actor,
Yeah.
was so wooden.
I know, it was just terrible.
And yeah, they just didn't seem like a cohesive group. They didn't have any chemistry. They didn't even seem like they were that interested in doing their job.
There's Mordo as well. So.
Yeah. They he was okay actually. I think
pretty
his performance was okay.
Yeah.
But they're supposed to be this very smart group, but they're incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
Including Mr. Fantastic, who's supposed to be the smartest man alive.
They literally use that line.
They literally name drop him as the smartest man alive.
They
and
brought
then,
him in and they said, this is the smartest man alive.
yeah, and then in the next scene, he tells the bad guy,
Yeah.
his one of his most powerful team members is he tells the bad guy what his power is.
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, Wanda, you won't do anything because my guy to the right of me can whisper something and you're dead."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, how about I just take away his mouth?" Well, great job, Mr. Fantastic. You know what you should have done, Mr. Fantastic, is you should have just assessed the situation and gone, okay, maybe let's diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
What does Wanda want? Oh, she wants to get her kids. She wants to get this thing, this book, this MacGuffin. Let's try and stop her. By doing that, let's not reveal our weaknesses to her. Like, you're the smartest man in the world, for God's sakes. And you make a decision that dumb.
Yep.
And then he doesn't even, he does, one move that, attacks Wanda,
Yep.
where he stretches a bit. And then he also stretches a bit, when he lands in front of her. But, we don't even see his powers. Like, we don't even see him use his stretchy ability that much.
And this is very interesting because you start to question whether this was done on purpose. And it's a genuine question. Did Marvel anticipate and did they purposefully plan to make these male characters look like idiots?
But then they address him as the smartest man alive.
Yeah.
So either way, in universe, it doesn't work because he's supposed to be a very smart guy, and he gets outsmarted by Wanda, who's certainly not the smartest person alive.
Yeah,
but I do take that point where it is very odd how we were talking about this. So let's take the Illuminati. We have Charles Xavier, we have Reed Richards, we have Black Bolt, Captain Carter, and some Captain Marvel person. So the most powerful person there is probably Charles Xavier.
Yeah, I was
right?
going to say, yep.
Probably Charles Xavier. And then next, I would say Mr. Fantastic, just because of the comics, and he's just a very well-regarded character. So goes Charles Xavier, Mr. Fantastic. I'd probably say maybe
I want to say
Captain Marvel or Black Bolt.
pretty much equal.
Yeah, so Black Bolt, Captain Marvel, and then the person with a shield, okay?
Yeah.
It's the strong person with a shield, right?
Guess who dies last?
So then that's the order in which they should probably die, right? And we should have an action scene where they're all fighting together using their team dynamics, you know? But no, they all attack individually, like in turns, like they're the Power Rangers.
Yep.
Well, actually, the Power Rangers do it better, sorry, because they do group together and do like team attacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But so Mr. Fantastic attacks first. One of the most powerful members of the team, Wanda, kills him, no worries. She kills Black Bolt before that, I think.
Yep.
Just by popping his head off. That was very easy.
Yeah.
And the rest of the team just watch her do that, by the way.
Yeah.
Mr. Fantastic just watches his supposedly his friend, his lifelong friend, get his head popped off, and he only waits until after that to then attack.
But you know why he can't attack? It's because they're not in the same room.
Because they're not in the same room.
Yeah.
They're filmed separately and
Yeah.
pasted in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the truth.
Yeah. But it is ridiculously stupid that Captain Carter, the strong woman with a shield,
Dies
you know,
second to last or something.
yeah, I don't care if it's Captain Carter or Captain America.
Yeah.
Captain America should be dead. You know, Captain America's not Batman, okay?
There's no way Captain America is beating
Wanda.
Wanda.
Yeah.
Or outlasting Charles Xavier or outlasting
Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic. It's not happening, man.
Yeah. And I found that to be incredibly disrespectful. I think Reed Richards his introduction in this movie was terrible. I think it would have done a lot of damage to the character already, because having seen this, people are going to think that Mr. Fantastic actually isn't that powerful.
Yeah.
When he's supposed to be one of the most powerful heroes.
Yeah. I mean, he's incredibly strong in the comics. He's
well, in Civil War, it's him and Tony Stark,
Yep.
the driving force of Team Iron Man.
he's like up there with like, I typically regard like Wolverine and Deadpool as like the strongest.
Right.
Because they're pretty much invincible.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Nothing kills them in the comics.
Yeah.
And he's like up there, man. Like he's really strong.
Yeah.
And he just gets like paper
He just
shredded.
gets wrecked. Absolutely wrecked. He literally gets stretched apart.
Yeah.
Like, that's his power.
Yeah.
How does that do anything to him?
Well, I think she like shreds him or something.
Yeah, but like still, like
Yeah.
you can, Mr. Fantastic can morph his body in all different ways. Like, and she just literally stretches him and he goes, and then she just pops his head
he
off.
just, like-
But like the guys are made of rubber. That's not how rubber works.
Yeah.
But then we get easily, and then meanwhile, while this is happening, Hayley Atwell, or Captain Carter, does nothing with her shield. You could just throw the shield and knock Wanda out right then. Or Captain Marvel could maybe, fly around the side and, do some cosmic power stuff.
What's Charles Xavier doing?
He's like talking with Doctor Strange or something.
Wait, but I thought
Because he wasn't
Doctor
there.
Strange was fighting with Mordo.
Yeah, I don't know where.
So where was Charles Xavier?
Maybe he was just gliding along on his wheelchair to get there to the fight.
Charles Xavier is arguably one of the strongest people in superheroes.
Yes, exactly. And Wanda dismantles him easily
And
in
cracks his neck.
a few minutes. And
These
just
are
pops up behind
legacy
him.
characters, man. I would
I would consider Charles Xavier a legacy character.
Yeah.
He essentially came in, I think it was 2000 X-Men is when it came out, and then they just killed him.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, he died in Logan. Obviously, this is like a different universe, but you can't just like take such a powerful, iconic character and just like make him just dog food.
Yeah, and I say the same thing about Mr. Fantastic as well. And to be honest, even the Captain Carter, you know, to have her just get killed like that, you know, we don't even get to see, you know, some character development there. It's just a cameo. It's just a useless cameo, surface level. Oh, look, it's the person from the other thing that you know. Isn't that cool? She said the line. She said the line. You know, she said, "I can do this all day." Doesn't that make you want to clap, Marvel fans?
But no one did.
Yeah.
It's becoming very, very clear what Marvel's doing here. We let it slide with Spider-Man No Way Home because that made sense.
And it was huge,
and
people loved that.
Yeah, but this makes absolutely no sense at all. Like, they introduced them, and then
they died.
Nothing happened.
Yeah,
Absolutely
they don't
nothing
do
happened.
anything.
They didn't add anything. There's no weight going on here. There's no meat.
You can very easily work them out of this movie.
It's just like, hey, this is gonna maybe happen in the movie.
Yeah.
You'll watch it because of that, right?
Because John Krasinski's in it.
You've all wanted John Krasinski.
He wasn't even that good as well. It's so disappointing because he's not given enough, and he's not given enough to you know, to act with. You know, he just sort of does the nice guy Jim persona.
Yeah.
You know, he's not actually being the smartest man alive. He's not making any smart decisions here at all.
I only saw him make one decision, which was arguably the worst decision.
Which is to tell Wanda the weakness of the dude.
It's like saying, like, hey, don't use kryptonite on Superman. Like,
it's like, you know, Darkseid, you can't do anything to us, Darkseid, because unless you have kryptonite, Superman's invincible. And then Darkseid's like, oh, interesting. Well, I'll be back with some kryptonite then. You know, that's what it's like. You know, that's how dumb this writing is. And you know what? I think that this entire Illuminati was pasted into the movie after they saw the success of No Way Home because
100%.
Because the CGI was so bad. They're not fighting in a real room. As soon as people start fighting, they're either stunt doubles or completely CGI. They're not in the same room. Elizabeth Olsen never met John Krasinski. She never met any of these people. And look, man, it's just terrible. I don't like it.
It's just completely... It's just laughable, you know? Like, it's just...
And
wow,
the
it's
reason
bad.
Marvel does this a lot where they clearly didn't have a set, so they just have like a grey room. And they just have like, you know, a wide, expansive room. Like, what is the actual purpose of this room? Like, why would you just have a big room like that? There's nothing in the room. Like, if you want somewhere to fight, then like go outside.
Yeah.
You know, like why do you just have this huge like warehouse room in the middle of their headquarters? Like, there's nothing there. There's no purpose. And this is the problem, because if you think about this, if you think about anything in this movie, and, you know, you can say this about Black Widow, you can say this about any other Phase 4 MCU, even No Way Home, you think about it for a bit too long, it all unravels.
Yeah.
Just like John Krasinski in this movie, completely unraveled.
His superpower is just completely disregarded. He literally gets
It's like drowning
stretched.
Aquaman. It's like, oh, Aquaman, I'm going to drown you.
It's like you can't outstretch the stretchy guy. It's not possible.
Well, you can't explode a rubber guy either.
Yeah.
That's not how, you know, it'll... Because I think that obviously does happen, you know. He can get exploded and then reform.
Yeah.
You know, like he can... He's rubber. Like,
Yeah.
if you throw a rubber at a wall, it's just going to bounce back, isn't it? Like, it doesn't do any damage to it at all.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Sam Raimi because he came onto this movie like maybe halfway through, I think, because the original director Scott Derrickson was fired, and by that I mean there was a release that said there was creative differences, which means that Kevin Feige fired his ass because he probably wanted to do something interesting, and Kevin Feige was like, no, cameos.
Yes. Reed Richards.
Scott Derrickson was like, okay, so this is my Doctor Strange movie, so it's about Doctor Strange. Kevin Feige's like, no, get out.
Wanda. Has to be about Wanda.
Get out. How dare you?
Having Doctor Strange in his own movie. How dare you do that?
I mean, how much have we talked about Doctor Strange? I mean, not much at all.
Not much at all.
So anyway, Sam Raimi has moments where I think he really gets to show off his style. And those are my favorite moments in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's moments where there's montages and interesting...
Close-ups.
Yeah, close-ups. And
zombie sequence.
Yeah,
which is awesome. Probably my favorite part.
Interesting horror elements. And yeah, that's where you get to see his creativity, which we miss in Marvel movies, come through. And I'm like, oh yes, this is finally what I want. Some nice color grading, some interesting stylistic choices, and then we hit an MCU scene for 30 minutes.
Yeah. And it's so obvious that he's been drained out by Kevin Feige and his unruly need to just shove useless stuff in these movies that'll just bring in the money, it'll bring in the fans, but it won't last any longer than overnight.
Then like the news cycle, in 3 months, no one's going to be talking about this movie. No. I didn't like some of the one-liners in this movie, and I also think there was some Marvel quippy jokes that just completely ruined the stakes.
Yeah.
At the start, Wanda invades, the Taj, whatever it's called, the magic place.
Kamaraj, or whatever it is. Yeah.
So Wanda invades that. But before she does, Doctor Strange is quipping away with Wong. Like, bro, your entire ministry is about to get slaughtered.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, no pressure then, And it's so
also
funny.
Yeah. It's also just stuff like, why are they getting prepared like last minute? Like,
yeah. Shouldn't they already be?
Like, they're getting everyone set up and then, like, this storm cloud's rolling in. It's like, shouldn't we already be ready? You watch the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers.
They get ready hours in advance, don't they?
Yeah. It's like you were anticipating
and
this.
It's a huge battle because, like, they have to put the children underground and, they prepare for hours. Yeah. It's a big build-up.
Yeah. And you see the Uruk-hai and the Orc army coming in.
Slowly.
Yeah. There's literally a Wanda right there, and they're getting the archers, like, set up now. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Bit little too late.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do you have anything else specifically you want to say about this film?
Just the fact that this is really frustrating me. Like, I am extremely frustrated with the creative choices, chosen here. I think that it's just a blatant disregard for fans, what they actually wanted. I think Marvel continuously disappoints now. I say this time and time again, I'm not excited for what's coming up for Marvel. Nothing interests me with what they're doing.
How were your expectations for this movie before reviews started to come out? Because obviously the reviews were rather mixed, which for a Marvel film means it's bad because the reviews always skew very positive for the MCU films.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about this movie maybe 6 months ago, when it was sort of, just being announced? Maybe we got a trailer and we just had, a bit of anticipation. What did you want from the film?
I was about the same as I was with No Way Home. Like, I was a bit scared because I knew that there was like reshoots going on.
Yeah.
I knew that it had been mixed around with No Way Home in terms of which came first. So I was worried that it was gonna just get destroyed in like the final processes. I was worried that Sam Raimi wasn't going to this wasn't going to be his movie, which ended up not being his movie. Essentially everything, you know, my worst nightmare came true. And that wasn't the same with No Way Home. No Way Home, we were very, very cautious.
Yeah.
And it proved us wrong.
It delivered, yeah.
I would say it proved...
Yeah, we were very,
Yeah, we were very harsh with that movie. And
in terms of the trailers and stuff.
Yeah, and I think we had a great time with that.
Yep. Which just goes to show that, you know, we're not MCU haters. You know, maybe if somebody is an MCU fan and they're listening to this, they might think, oh, you know, they just don't like MCU movies.
I want it to be good, man.
Civil War is one of my favorite movies ever of all time. And despite the terrible color grading and stuff like that, I think I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best MCU movies. It's really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's just the fact that it worried me before it even happened. Right. Like I knew Marvel couldn't do a horror movie.
Pull off such an interesting concept.
Yeah. And
well, they advertised it as a horror movie,
which really frustrates me. This isn't a horror movie. At no point was I scared. Don't call it a horror movie. Call it a thriller movie.
Yeah, I mean, sure, some jump scares maybe got me, but like they were cheap.
Yeah, very cheap.
Yeah, anyone can do that. Anyone can cut the sound for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then do a big piano note.
It's just such a cheap jump scare.
And scare you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just frustrating. Is the one word I would describe it.
Fair enough. Any other thoughts or?
Not really.
Okay, what are our thoughts on the useless post-credit scene? There's one where Doctor Strange is... By the way, the moral of the story is kind of Doctor Strange should just be happy. Mm-hmm. And look, I think maybe that's an interesting moral if you base the entire story around that. Maybe Doctor Strange is going through some depression and
have we talked about this with his love interest or?
No, which we should address. We should address. So Doctor Strange, his sort of path and story throughout this film is him...
And throughout the first as well.
Oh, is it? Just...
Well, he's always been, you know, he's always...
a bit distant?
Well, no, he's always just wanted, like...
a normal life. Or...
Normal life. He's wanted Christine Palmer back. Like, that's always been what the Strange is about.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so... And I think that through line in this movie was really good. I enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. I think every time he saw Christine...
Yep.
I was very engaged by their interactions that he had with the different Christines in the multiverse and how that sort of told the story of their relationship. So the question is sort of posed to Strange at the start of the film is, are you happy? And he says yes, but we know that's not really the case. And he sort of... He talks to Christine throughout the film, and obviously he's in love with her, and he admits that to her. And then by the end, he sort of just decides to be happy.
Yeah.
But there's no development in the plot except for him just, you know, interacting with Christine.
Yeah.
That drives him to be happy. It's sort of just a decision he makes, and one day he's just walking outside and he's happy.
Mm. It's just nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. Like, am I wrong in saying that it's just a complete disregard for what you've set up throughout the 2 hours and 14 minutes or however long?
Yeah. It's not. When the movie ends, when you cut to black, you want to, in those final frames, sort of reinforce the message of this movie. But he just walks outside. He's all nice and happy, and then he sort of has this like seizure attack, and then he has a new eye. And then the movie ends, and it's like, that's not the point of the movie. Strange getting a new eye. That's an interesting thing, maybe for a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
But to have that as the final frame where you cut to black is just really odd.
What does that even mean?
I think it's just something that he developed because he was using the dark magic or whatever.
And so he's like evil now?
No, I think he's just got a new eye.
It's just, how can you end a movie on that? Like,
yeah,
you've got arguably like some of the, I wouldn't say the greatest minds because it's not the greatest minds. The greatest minds wouldn't come up with this, but you've got a great team of writers.
That's been nice. That's been kind.
Okay, you've got a team of writers.
Yeah.
who should have been continually like talking about this project.
Yes, yeah.
Figuring out how should we end this, how should we start this, what should we put in it,
Yeah.
and you ended on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what Nolan does throughout his films really well is that he knows the themes that he's portraying, and then he always manages, every single time,
Yep.
manages to reinforce the desired emotion on the final frames.
Yes.
And this film does not have that because it does not know what it wants to do with Doctor Strange from 0 to 2 hours.
Yep.
There's a lot of Wanda, and there's a lot of Strange talking with his love interest, which is really, really good. But what I didn't like about the love interest bit was that he just kept on being denied, and then he doesn't even get. He sort of forms a nice relationship with the red-haired version of Christine, and by the end, he just sort of gets a nice moment with her, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
But, like, come on, they're madly in love. Just give us a kiss.
Yeah.
Like, give us some sort of win for Doctor Strange here, because he hasn't had a win the entire movie.
Doctor Strange hasn't had a win, period.
In what? Yeah.
In ever.
Yeah.
Has he?
Yeah, I don't know. And then he just, at the end, despite all that, he just decides to be happy. Imagine if Wanda just did that. Imagine if Wanda was just happy.
Yeah.
That would solve her problems, wouldn't it?
Well, the world's great now.
Yeah, and that's probably my main problem with this film, is that the Doctor Strange arc is not good enough.
Yeah. Third Eye Strange.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Wong's alive again.
Yeah, don't forget Wong. He's got to appear in another 10 movies, bro. He's the Nick Fury of Phase 4.
Yeah.
And anyway, so in the post credits, we have this bizarre. Was that what's her name? Charlize.
Charlize Theron.
Yeah. So she shows up. She's looking pretty nice, but her costume's terrible.
Oh yeah.
She looks like a Power Rangers villain, and that's not a compliment. The Power Rangers villains, they have very, interesting costumes, but they're not necessarily, $1 million blockbuster quality costumes.
And that's because they don't have millions to play with.
Yes, but these people do, and they don't.
Yeah.
That's the main problem.
Yeah.
But her outfit looks terrible. She shows up, essentially tells Strange that she's got another mission for him, and that's the post-credit scene.
Yeah. I mean, who even is she?
Yeah, no context. And Doctor Strange just goes with her.
Yeah.
That's an unwise decision.
And then we see the third eye again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are you excited?
No. I mean, it ends on Doctor Strange will... We had a chat about this, but it ends on Doctor Strange will return. Like, we don't know Doctor Strange is going to return.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And obviously, Wanda is not dead.
Yeah.
Like, Wanda is not dead.
I mean, what happened with her?
Well, she was in that building
Oh,
when
she
it
got crushed by
crumbled.
rubble.
Yeah, but bro, this is the MCU. Nobody dies unless you specifically see them die on screen.
I mean, you brought Patrick Stewart back from the dead only to kill him again.
Yeah. But, I mean, they'll make a Wanda movie now. They'll do it.
Yeah.
100%. They'll do it.
I just want her arc to be done with. I don't care about it anymore.
I thought I was spoiled the fact that she died, and I was interested to see that because not a lot of people die in the MCU, and I thought she was going to die, and I was happy to have her die and be done with it. Have her arc. It's a very tragic story, and that's it. That's Wanda done.
Yep.
Let's move on to somebody else.
Yep.
But no, I think she'll come back.
I think
she'll come back.
I think they're going to continue on. With
They
this.
left it open, which means she's coming back.
And I just don't care for her kids.
Yeah, and they didn't build them up in WandaVision. They didn't build them up in this either. So I don't care.
I just haven't been able to contain myself in this podcast, man. Like, it's just a complete joke.
Look, final thoughts. Look, I can't pass this movie. Do we give D pluses and D minuses and stuff?
Yeah, we do.
No, I think this is on the same level as The Force Awakens. I think I'll give it a D.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't... Maybe a D plus because some things were interesting, but I can't give it a C minus because this is not good enough. I can't say that this is good enough.
Are you done? Or...
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay,
I was done half an hour ago.
Yeah. I I liked Eternals more.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a D- for me. I This is like bottom 3 MCU.
Wow, that's
I
Are you sure? There's a
Yeah,
lot of terrible
I'm
MCU
sure.
movies.
This is like the Dark World Captain Marvel territory.
Wow, it's not that bad
No,
for me. But
it's bad. I I don't like this.
simple as that. Simple as that. He doesn't like it. Simple as that.
It's not that I don't like it. It's that I hate it. I dislike this.
Yeah, and what offends me is that when a film is offensive to something that you love, something that you like.
That's why I hate it.
That's when you get films like The Last Jedi, right? The Last
Yep.
Jedi in itself, isolation, is a bad movie, but it's also terrible Star Wars and
Yep.
spits in the face of all of the Star Wars content that comes before it.
I love me some Last Jedi.
So, and that's how you get angry
Yeah.
fans or frustrated fans like you are.
Yeah.
When you take something that people love and you just,
Throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
It's just blatant disrespectful.
disrespectful.
Yeah. And that's not the only part. That's not where it finishes. This is just terrible filmmaking in general.
For sure.
It's
a mess of a movie.
It's a huge mess of a movie. And I don't have anything else to say. It's
Fair enough. I think we'll leave it at that.
music segment.
Oh, well, we already discussed that we're not
No.
doing the music segment because Danny Elfman's a fraud and he plagiarized his own work and he should be disrespected for it. And so we're going to disrespect him and we're not going to add any music to the music's playlist.
Yes.
I think the music playlist is better off without him. All right. So we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for listening and we will catch you next time.
See ya.